Mr. President, I'd like to say a few words about the nomination of Governor Kathleen Sebelius to serve as our next Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. I will not be able to support Governor Sebelius' nomination to this position and will be voting no. I would like to take a few minutes to explain my opposition to her confirmation. First, I have always been pro-life. I believe that life begins at conception and that every life is precious. I believe that we as a society have a responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves and speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. That is why I am so strongly opposed to abortion. Abortion kills the most fragile, most vulnerable, and most needy among us. These children cannot defend themselves, so they desperately need us to protect them. To me, abortion is about whether or not defenseless babies have a right to live. The answer clearly is yes, they do. I really don't understand how people can come away with any other conclusion than that one. Unfortunately, too many people do. According to the National Right to Life, there have been more than 49 million abortions in the United States of America since 1973, with about 1.2 million in 2005, the year they have the most recent data. These numbers are staggering and saddening. I cannot support the nomination of someone to be the leader of our Health and Human Services Department who does not respect human life. That is why I will be voting against Governor Sebelius. Her record as governor of Kansas on abortion issues is dismal. She has vetoed multiple pieces of legislation passed by the Kansas legislature dealing with abortion, including bills in 203, 205, 206, 208. In fact, just last week, she vetoed yet another bill. These were common sense bills that I think most Americans could agree with, such as creating standards for abortion clinics like requiring clean and sterilized rooms and equipment, counseling before and after abortion, and medical screening for patients. Several of the bills dealt with changes to Kansas's late-time abortion laws, including one vetoed last week. That bill required certain information to be reported to the state when doctors perform late-term abortions, including the specific medical reason the abortion was performed. Another bill would have given women about to undergo an abortion the opportunity to listen to the baby's heartbeat and see an ultrasound of their child, along with several other provisions. Governor Sebelius vetoed all of these bills. I am also greatly concerned about Governor Sebelius' relationship with Dr. George Tiller, an abortion doctor from Wichita who specializes in late-time abortion. On Dr. Tiller's website, he says his clinic has more experience in late-time abortion services over 24 weeks than anyone else practicing in the Western Hemisphere, Europe, or Australia. This is not something to be proud of. I know the pro-abortion supporters like to make the argument that unborn babies are just a clump of cells and not yet a human being. They couldn't be more wrong. These unborn babies are developing, growing, can feel pain, and have certainly have the will to live. Let me briefly give you a description of the development milestones babies reach as they grow to 24 weeks. This is according to the Mayo Clinic's website, Mayo Clinic. At 5 weeks, the heart begins to beat. At 8 weeks, eyelids are forming, along with ears, upper nose, fingers, lips, and toes. At 9 weeks, the baby begins to move. At 12 weeks, fingernails and toenails are forming. At 16 weeks, the baby's eyes are sensitive to light. At 18 weeks, the ears start working, and the baby can be even startled by loud noises. At 19 weeks, the kidneys are working. At 20 weeks, most mothers can feel their babies move. At 22 weeks, taste buds are forming. At 23 weeks, the baby begins to practice breathing, so she will be ready once she is born. At 24 weeks, the baby weighs about 1.5 pounds, has footprints and fingerprints, and starts to have regular waking and sleep cycles. The website says that babies born at 24 weeks have a 50% chance of survival. And this is where Dr. Tiller steps in and aborts the baby. How can you hear these development milestones and believe these babies are expendable? That these babies' lives are less important than someone else, or that they simply be killed and thrown away? Think of the difference between two babies at 24 weeks. One is wanted, one is not. For the child born early, whose parents love and want her, she would be rushed to a neonatal intensive care unit after delivery, where she would be given round-the-clock intensive medical care until she was big and strong enough to go home. Every day in this country, premature babies cling to life and fight for survival. I think most of the parents of premature babies would tell you that their child's will to live is courageous and inspiring. For the poor babies who have parents choose to abort them, their life is about to end. According to Planned Parenthood, a procedure called distillation, and evacuation, or D&E, is generally performed in pregnancies over 16 weeks. Let me read you how Right to Life describes this procedure. Forceps with sharp metal jaws are used to grasp parts of the developing baby, which are then twisted and torn away. This continues until the entire baby is removed from the womb. Because the baby's skull has often hardened to bone by this time, the skull must sometimes be compressed or crushed to facilitate removal. That is disgusting, and anyone who tries to justify it should be ashamed. Abortion and the callous disregard for human life in this country is a real tragedy. George Tiller work greatly concerned me. Governor Sebelius' ties to George Tiller greatly concerns me. The late-term abortion doctor has donated tens of thousands of dollars to Governor Sebelius, and she has even honored him at the governor's mansion in Kansas. Governor Sebelius hasn't always been upfront about their relationship as well. In answering questions to the Finance Committee, Governor Sebelius originally said Tiller had donated about $12,000 to her. A few days later, she had to go back to revise that amount because somewhere an additional $23,000 in donations from the abortion doctor had been overlooked and not accounted for. While she said this was an inadvertent omission, it seems that you would remember that sum of money from one of your most controversial donors. I certainly realize that President Obama would not nominate someone to be Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services who is pro-life. However, Governor Sebelius' record on life issues, along with her ties to late-term abortion Dr. Tiller cannot be overlooked. The leader of the Department of Health and Human Services should be balanced and reasonable. There's nothing in Governor Sebelius' record that makes me think she is either of these things when it comes to protecting the life of the unborn. The second major reason I am opposing the nomination is that I don't believe that Governor Sebelius has the experience to be Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. HHS is an enormous bureaucracy responsible for everything from the Medicare program to the National Institute of Health to the Food and Drug Administration. The department has 11 operating divisions, over 64,000 employees, and a budget of $707 billion. And according to HHS website, it allocates more grant dollars than any of the other agencies combined. This is a tremendous responsibility, and the department needs someone with on-hands experience. As governor of Kansas, she appointed someone to run their Health and Human Services Department and was not directly responsible for the day-to-day operation. As Congress considers major health care reform legislation this year, we need someone with extensive experience on setting health policy for the entire country. I fundamentally agree with Governor Sebelius on life issues, and I do not believe she has the experience to lead such a large department. I will be voting no on her nomination. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.